The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
Hooray for Hollywood, where stars are living large, in mansions with their servants and their credit cards in charge, with fame that's fleeting, but the egos never change, where everyone's a genius, except the ones who really arrange. Hooray for Hollywood, where the scandals always sell, where every whispered secret is a new tabloid's tell. Oh, how we adore the endless red carpet galore. Hooray for Hollywood, where less is always more.
I don't want to fight the entire podcast against the Robert Winfrey who has had to cover MMA for the last 20 years, and MMA and wrestling are this like giant emotional burden for you to where no one's as good a fan as you are. Therefore, no one's allowed to have an opinion against you. If we could discuss this as a movie, and to that point, I don't remember who Mark Coleman was. I kind of came into MMA at the tail end of Tito Ortiz and what's his nuts with the brain injury? The Ice Guy. Iceman. Chuck Liddell. So I think the very first like non-Brock Lesnar related UFC pay-per-view I watched, like when I started watching regularly, was Diego Sanchez and BJ Penn. I think about there is where I started watching it consistently, and not too long after that is when I started writing about MMA and then seconding Larry's coverage for 401mania.com. So, like, the era that the Smashing Machine takes place in, I have scant memory of. Like, I know some of these people, like some of the names that they threw out there, like, oh, yeah, I remember that. And I certainly have, like, watched some old Pride and, you know, like, my knowledge of the UFC kind of starts with the first couple of events that I saw on VHS, then stops for a while. Did not watch The Ultimate Fighter in its inception. Did not watch the season with Forrest Griffin and
Stephan Bonnar.
He
died tragically a few years ago.
Which one?
Bonnar.
But did he really?
Why would I lie about this? Yes.
Okay.
He's very dead.
Okay. I don't didn't know that. B. Anyway,
so that reaction was more like you going, "Wait, really? Would I lie to you about someone's status on the earth, Mark?"
Let me what's the word they say in court? I'll change
rephrase.
I'll rephrase my question. I'll rephrase. Oh, did he really? Wow, I didn't know that, Robert. Anyway.
Yeah, he did. Drug addiction and brain injury will ruin your life, and he's not that much older than you.
Had been on for a while by the time I caught up with it. Like, I remember, and even then, there's only a handful of seasons I really remember. Like, I remember GSP, and oh shit, he coached opposite
Josh Koscheck.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that season. Obviously, I remember the Brock Lesnar season. I remember the Ronda Rousey season.
For all the wrong reasons, I assume.
I mostly remember because it proved beyond a shadow of a doubt Ronda Rousey was a fucking lunatic. And I actually had sympathy for Miesha Tate.
And somehow that also made Tate deeply unlikable too. Like, how do you do that where both coaches come across as someone you want to see just like hit by a car?
It's a fair question. I think I remember the Uriah Faber season, like very vaguely.
The Ultimate Fighter Live with Uriah Faber and Dominic Cruz.
That's the one. So all of that to say,
one fight that had a 5-minute break between rounds because they were behind on commercials.
So all of that to say, for all the years that I covered 411 covered MMA for 411, for all the casual fan based stuff that I've had for MMA. A lot of what we're going to talk about tonight, which is the Smashing Machine, starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Emily Blunt and former MMA fighter Ryan Bader,
I think he's still active.
is doesn't matter anymore. Is that I wasn't all that familiar with Mark Kerr. I didn't watch the documentary this is based on, and I kept in my memory, which is going down the tubes, I kept confusing Mark Coleman with Dan Severn, who I mostly remember from his years in the WWE. So, with that said, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to Robert have a conniption and possibly a seizure. Yay!
I don't want to be here.
Neither do I.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out in my head how we're going to structure this.
Why don't you, in 50 words or less, I really do mean 50, because if you do a fucking Sheldon and start with going all the way back to Greece, I'm just going to end the show. Why don't you tell people in 50 words or less your fan/professional writer experience as a fan of MMA? Like, how did that come to be? How long you've been watching? How you've been involved with the sport as a writer?
I watched a few events when I was young. So this is like, again,
did you like me, watch the VHSs?
Yeah, iffy. I was a kid.
Okay.
You gotta remember, I'm 10 years younger than you.
Right.
So I'm a 11. So I wasn't even 11. I would have been like a 9 to 11-year-old kid in Oregon, and I've been doing karate for 4.5 years because I stick to things that I start. I don't like my routine disrupted. Surprise.
That's why we're still here. This show should have ended 5 years ago, but damn it, Robert's a stickler.
Give or take. And it was starting to generate some waves around then. Again, this is like 90. This is starting like the mid to early late. When I say early late, I don't mean like early and then late. I mean like we're like 5 to 7, 95, 97. So the UFC's been going for a few years, so the posters start popping up. I mean, turns out, I lived not all that far from where Team Quest wound up being headquartered for quite some time.
Oh, really? That's cool.
So my interest in martial arts goes back a long way, and then I saw some of that and went, oh, that looks interesting. Then I moved, and that went away for a lot of reasons, and I don't feel like going into that. I sort of rediscovered MMA because it never really went away. I started finding, like, back in the old days, back when YouTube had a 10-minute limit on videos it uploaded, you could upload to it. And the only place to find, like, information on fights and whatnot was via the internet, and usually via mid to low quality GIFs. That's where I started seeing stuff from Pride in particular. So, I saw Rampage powerbomb Ricardo Arona. I saw Bob Sapp give Big Nog a shoot dominator.
Nice.
I'm not even kidding if you've never seen that fight. Big Nog shoots a single leg. Bob Sapp, who is enormous, and this is the time in his career when he's still trying.
Well, he isn't on the tour of defeat that would make him infamous.
That comes later. This is a period of time.
I'm very well aware of that, but the normies don't know that.
Yeah, so he grabs Big Nog around the waist. Big Nog, not a small man, heaves him up over a shoulder, and then back down pancake. Like, it's wild. I saw stuff here and there from stuff like that, but we're entering like this would be like 02 to 04 is kind of when I started getting back into it in a more like consistent way. I didn't watch the first season of The Ultimate Fighter. I don't care for reality TV in that respect. But it was on right after Raw, and I started watching that with one of my aunts because it was a thing we did.
Couldn't find the remote.
My interest in pro wrestling had kind of resurged at that period of time. It ebbs and flows. So I'm, I guess, again, aware, and then I watched the first finale because Bonner Griffin. I think I watched a replay of Bonner Griffin because it's a wild fight.
Mm-hmm. It's the fight that gets credited for bringing the UFC into the mainstream for what that's worth.
It's very, very important. It's also overly mythologized when you dig into it. Anyway, you didn't want a whole tangent. So I started watching it. I started watching MMA in general back, in fact, when places were calling it NHB fighting for no holds barred before MMA was like an accepted bit of terminology for it. So I watched like one of the local promotions that had a weekly show at like 2:30 in the morning on local access TV because I was suffering from insomnia and a depressed teenager. Then I kind of got more into it over time because I liked it. I mean, if you have my interest, it tends to hit there. And then I was looking around for places I could see stuff about it, read about it. I stumbled across 411 between wrestling and MMA. And there was an opening, there was an advertisement that said, "Would you like to write for us if you want to write about MMA?" And I went, I haven't written anything in a while. I could use the practice.
Okay. So I started in the MMA zone. I'd already been writing for 401 for years. I'd float around in different. I was a big part of their politics page when that was a thing. I was on the music page. I was in the movies page. I don't think I ever did anything. No, I did submit something for the wrestling page. It was peeing on WrestleMania. So I think I had bounced around to almost every single zone in 401 Mania. What was your column originally? Because I know Jeremy's was. Don't tell me now. Jeremy's was like the cardiac something or other.
You're close. You're not right, but you're close.
It was cardio. This is the cardio something.
Do you remember the second word?
Freak.
Yeah, good job.
Right.
The cardio freak.
Samer had a column. I remember it had a really funny name, but I don't remember the name of it.
He came up with a title for it purely because they made him.
Yeah. Scott Kachowski had a column.
Yeah. Pat had the blueprint.
Right. So everyone wonders like where I got all my friends from. This is kind of the origin story of the Radulich Broadcasting Network, because I come in like fucking Jake Paul into the 411 MMA zone. Nobody wants me there, and I know nothing, but I'm there because Larry took pity on me, I guess. And I think I was doing the column where I was responding to YouTube videos, and that got to be a little too much for me. So I was like, I have this. I still have my Blog Talk Radio account. Well, I'll just start another podcast. I started the 411 Ground and Pound radio show. Sent out a thing to all you guys, and you guys all started to come on, and that's the beginning of my current iteration of podcasting. What was your column called again?
Jeez. For a while it did have a title, Locked in the Guillotine.
That's what it was, yeah. And then I graduated.
Oh, yeah, Samer had the Rear Naked column. That was what it was.
That's what it was, yeah. I also participated in a bunch of Fact or Fictions. So long story short, and I'll go back to you in a second, but that's how I started covering the pay-per-views. It was Larry wanted me to cover the non-pay-per-view stuff. So for a good run, and it was a long run, because by the end of it, Melissa was like, "You need to either quit or they need to pay you." So it'd been going on for a while for her to have lost patience with it. And I think by that point, Larry wasn't really covering the pay-per-views anymore, unless they sent him personally. Like, he got the Rashad Evans Rampage fight in Georgia. Like, he was there live for that. I think Jeff got a couple of live events, but if no one was there live, I was generally covering almost all the events for that. Then I think you came along to help out, and then I quit.
Yeah, you did the UFC schedule ramped up, and you went, "I can't do this every week. Someone help." And I went, "Yeah, all right, sure. I got nothing else to do." And I watched these anyway.
Right. And then just like the podcast, it was like, "Here, come on and help me." Good. Now you stay and I'll leave.
Pretty much.
There's a pattern here.
Yeah.
Just wait till I hand Damn You Hollywood to you.
It won't survive.
Go on. Finish up.
So that's when I started I started writing about it. I did a little bit of fight results and breakdowns in the news, and I had a big long column, and then eventually they sent a message out that said, "We don't want long form stuff anymore. We'd like this to be shorter, more like mobile friendly. So I started writing shorter stuff, but I was already covering it as well at this point. And once I started covering everything, I'm not writing a weekly thing about this too. If I have to watch every fight on every card, I'm not going, and then, do a podcast about it as well. I'm just not going to write.
Well, I
about
do
it.
need to talk about that. So I started the show, and it was come one, come all, and because this is the early days of podcasting, and I don't want crosstalk because you can't hear anybody, I was like, I will host, I will ask questions, you will answer questions. People don't talk over each other. Jeff broke every single one of those rules, and drove me up the wall. Also, Jeff's sound was always terrible. He was calling in from like, a desert in Texas somewhere, and I could never understand what he said. That, and he had a high pitched voice. So, but it ran. Basically the show became a recap of the weekend. It was a recap of whatever shows happened that weekend. Usually there's a UFC show, but then there was also like, by that point I was watching everything. Believe it or not, I was watching Strike Force, which had been Elite FC. I was
XC.
XC. Okay, whatever. If there was the odd Pride show that was still around, I would watch that.
No. Pride was very dead by that point.
What am I thinking of then? That was in Japan. That was still doing shows.
Probably Ryzen.
That was it. It was Ryzen. My mistake. So I was covering I would watch the Ryzen shows. Whenever Fedor did an odd pay-per-view in Russia, I would buy it and watch. But then there was at the time, what was the channel that was doing all the Boss Rutten channel, where that was doing all like MMA, and it was doing New Japan Pro Wrestling. They sell like concert tickets now. It's actually on my phone. Oh gosh,
I remember the name of the program he did, but I don't remember the channel.
Yeah, it was like Access or something like that. The fuck was it?
It might have been. I mean, that's one of those channels that used to be something else.
Yeah, okay. It was Access, AXS.
Okay.
So Access would show regional MMA from like all over the place. They had shark fights.
Dog.
They had a bunch of different ones, right? So I would review those for 411. That was kind of like my thing. I would do the shit no one else wanted to do till I quit, and then Robert took over that role. But so that was kind of how the show went. We would review all the shows that took place over the weekend, and then we would preview whatever the next week was. Bellator was around that time, and I was huge on Bellator at that point when it was in its early days. And that
can't imagine why, but yeah, you were.
And that show, it's gonna be a long.
That's a dig at Bellator, not you.
So that show ran with me at the helm for a couple of years, as long as like Lily was a baby, and then and then I started doing other stuff with other guys. I started doing the Metal Hammer of Doom. I started doing Long Road to Ruin, and I think at that point Melissa was like, "We doing this way too much. You have to give something up. Give up." We would do this on Sundays in the morning, and it would be around like lunchtime, and it was like, "This is cutting into our day. I have stuff I want to do," and I'm like, "All right." So the kids are older. We're getting out of the house more, and Melissa's like, "Please stop with the fucking Sunday show." At which point, I think I turned it over to you. Yep. But you were still doing it as part of like by that point we were the Radulich Broadcasting Network. And then eventually I got the call from fucking I got big timed by Larry while he was still with us. It was like, no, it wasn't even Larry. I think it was Jeremy who did it.
Jeremy relayed that. I would bet money that came from issue.
Yeah. I'm not. It was basically like, it's our show. Either tell him to rename it or do something with this, but it's strictly ours now. And I'm like, he can fucking have it. Rob's been doing it long enough. It's really not mine anymore. So that's how you ended up doing the show, which is now all of those people who I mentioned were gone long ago. And I think it's just you now, and occasionally Jeff shows up.
It's just me. Jeff hasn't been on in a long time.
So that's the background you're going to get with us watching The Smashing Machine, starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Emily Blunt, co-starring former, current, possibly MMA fighter Ryan Bader.
I think his contract's in limbo because he used to fight for Bellator.
Mm-hmm.
And then that got sideways.
Isn't that now the PFL though?
Yeah. So I don't know his exact status.
This is why I said former, because at this point it doesn't really matter. Current heavyweight champion in boxing, Oleksandr Usyk. Which that's the only thing that annoyed me about the Critical Drinkers review was that like former MMA fighters. I'm like, he's the current boxing champion. You nit. Do a little bit of research.
You are not, dude. You don't get to throw stones if you confuse Mark Coleman with Dan Severn.
No, I will throw stones because he takes time and fucking edits these videos and writes scripts. You gave me an unending amount of shit about confusing Joseph Kaczynski and Michael Mann accidentally. I'm gonna throw stones. Fuck off. So anyway,
I did not give you an unending amount of crap over it. I brought it up.
That's your takeaway. So Boss Rutten's in this, who I genuinely enjoy, like just as a person.
Boss also is a not bad actor in his own right.
Yeah, he's actually done other stuff.
Yeah.
So real quick, what is the actual and again, 50 words or less, this time uninterrupted because I honestly have nothing to interrupt you with, other than if you go off on a tangent. What is the actual Mark Kerr story that they're drawing from?
They tell it fairly true to life. There's a couple of tweaks that they make. One, like almost all of this, in fact, a giant chunk
of it. They made it seem like they built Pride on his back.
That was not my takeaway from it. They didn't get into a lot of the history of that period of time in this movie for reasons.
Sure, it would have been way too much for the audience and confusing. I'm telling you, when I'm watching this, I didn't talk about that element of it with my kids. We were talking about the Dawn stuff mostly. Watching the movie, and I don't want to get into the review of it just yet because I asked you a very specific question. The way they frame Pride, it's like, we're doing this giant tournament. You're the centerpiece of it. And then the movie happens. And I'm like, there were so many people that were a part of like the building of Pride and making it what it was. To do this movie and at least not throw a nod to Fedor or Crow Cop or
neither of them
Rampage.
were in Pride. Yeah, your timeline's off.
Okay, fix it then.
Well, sort of. Fedor, I don't think is in Pride in 2000. I'd have to double check, but Big Nog, I believe, is. But both of them also are not that far removed from rings. I think we've had Nogueira Herring 1, which was the first heavyweight champion in Pride.
Right.
But this is still this period of time for Pride. It's a little bit less organized. Like the guys that we tend to associate with Pride, you mentioned Crow Cop, Vanderlei, Rampage, Shogun, Fedor. They're not big deals at the time that the 2000 Grand Prix is taking place. I have to double check some of the specific timing on this. So please, nobody kill me.
I'm gonna look up the actual 2000 Grand Prix. You talk about Mark Kerr.
Yeah, so Mark Kerr is, as presented in this movie, basically a former Division I wrestler who, like a lot of wrestlers early on, fell into MMA because he wanted to keep competing and it seemed reasonable. So the fact that they opened this with his winning, his first major thing, is that one event in Vale Tudo where he wins 4 fights in one night. He headbutts a guy into oblivion.
So 2000 in Pride, debuting, the following fighters fought their first Pride fight in 2000. Dan Henderson, Gilbert Ival, Hans Nijman, Heath Herring, Herman Renting, Igor Borisev, Jahil de Oliveira, John Marsh, John Rankin, Kazuyuki Fujita, Ken Shamrock. Again, how do you not mention Ken Shamrock, if that's the case?
Shamrock's not terribly relevant to what's going on.
Masaki Satake, Mike Bork, Osama Kawahara, Ricardo Almeida, Rika Rodriguez, Hoist Gracie, Ryan Gracie, Shannon Rich, Okada, Maker! Not that Okada. Though I did do that in the theater. Ishizawa, Tra Teligman, Willie Peters, and Yoshiaki Yatsu.
So again, if you're getting just the first appearances from Herring and Nogueira's about to come in, the guys we think of with Pride aren't really there. Early era Pride is built originally on the back of a feud between Nobuhiko Takada and Hickson Gracie.
Wanderlei Silva was fighting during this period.
Of course he was. So, but again, his entry into Pride isn't quite a thing yet. He's there, but he's not Vanderlei Silva yet.
Okay.
So, if you want to complain about people being omitted from this, the big omission here would be Kazushi Sakuraba,
Okay.
who kind of took up the mantle for Japanese MMA, in particular, like pro wrestling as it relates to MMA in Japan, after Hickson and a few of the other Gracies beat up against guys like Takada and a few other shoot style pro wrestlers.
Mm-hmm. So back to Mark Kerr.
And so Kerr, again, kind of falls into this because it's a thing to do. Mark Coleman kind of talked him into it. So he fights in Brazil, he fights in the UFC, but the UFC sucks at this point.
Right.
And there's not much money, and they're fighting to keep it legal, and that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
But there is money in Japan. Japan pays quite well. So most of the good talent for the period of time from like 96 to, I want to say 03-ish, is in Japan. Japan has the best heavyweight division in the sport that entire time by a mile. The number of UFC champions that leave the UFC over money to go fight in Pride is quite long. Randy Couture does it. Not Dave Manet, who's the other middleweight who does it. Bustamante, Murilo Bustamante does it. BJ Penn does it. Like, it's a long list of guys who, like, the UFC can't pay very well. Frank Shamrock does it. And that was actually kind of a big deal because Shamrock was kind of a draw for them at the time. I mean, there's a reason Ken left for pro wrestling, for crying out loud. Like, there's the early days, it's kind of a mess, and then Zuffa buys it, and they spend a lot of time just like pouring money into trying to fix everything.
Mm-hmm.
And the Zuffa myth is not something I buy into because I don't believe in their hagiography. But this is also why, like, Dana has deep affection for Chuck Liddell and Matt Hughes, because they stuck with him when there were offers for them to go elsewhere, and they didn't.
So the question really put before you was Mark Kerr in the 2000s.
Mark Kerr in the 2000s is...
Because really anyone who watched this because their boyfriend took them, you know, or it's going to get nominated for some kind of an Oscar, at which point everyone's asking, why make this movie? Who is Mark Kerr?
A guy that looks like The Rock. I mean, I hate to be glib about it, but The Rock wanted someone that he could play. There's a lot of early era MMA pioneers with interesting stories. There's a couple of reasons that Kerr stands out.
Great. What are those reasons? And then we'll get into the plot.
Well, one is, again, The Rock. He and The Rock bear enough physical resemblance for him to do it, and no one to scream about it. If The Rock tries to play Mark Coleman, we got a problem.
The Rock plays Sakuraba.
Yeah, again, we got a problem, right? So there's that. Then there is the Smashing Machine documentary, which was a kind of big deal, especially in early MMA circles.
I think that's what I kind of wanted you to talk about because I didn't know it existed until I saw the movie.
Yeah, it's a several year-long like documentary look. This movie actually encompasses basically the time frame of the documentary. Several of the shots in this are like lifted from the documentary almost to an annoying degree.
Like him crying in the gurney.
Him crying in the gurney, the bit of him getting Advil from the doctor in the back, a lot of the backstage stuff. Not all of it, but a lot of it. Stuff like that. Bits of the... So, again, a lot of that is taken from that. And that documentary was one of the first looks into sort of the cost of MMA on the human side, because this is, again, like the early 2000s. Football isn't even like acknowledging the brain damage problem, much less the, drug addiction, physical pain, emotional distress of the highs and lows of combat sports. So it kind of broke a little bit of ground in that respect. The fact that Kerr is a fairly affable guy And he also presented, the reason the documentary crew was kind of drawn to him in some respects, he presents a weird contrast, and credit to The Rock, when we get to this, I'll get to it. He
A
captures this
gentle
fairly,
giant kind of a thing.
just a duality of like purpose, because he looks terrifying, but he's got this fairly soft voice, and he's a very non-violent guy, but he's also walking around juiced to the gills and tapped people out with can openers because he had such freakish strength.
All right, let's get into the movie. Since we spent 30 minutes doing a lot, trying not to kill each other. Speaking of guys fighting and juiced up, what happens in this movie in 50 words or less, Robert?
So we follow we were introduced to Mark Kerr. They talk about his, again, winning the Vale Tudo tournament that I talked about. His first UFC fight or two. We meet Mark Coleman, played by Ryan Bader, badly. More on that later. We get to know the relationship he has with Dawn, and it's politely toxic is the way to describe it. It's not good.
It's normal toxic. Their relationship is every relationship I've seen that's just like that relationship.
Well, I say like describing it politely as toxic. It would be toxic instead of.
It is as common as the day is long.
Which is tragic in and of itself.
Moving on.
He starts fighting in Japan. His relationship is up and down. He's addicted to all kinds of opioids, especially the injectable kind. He overdoses. He gets clean. His girlfriend's like, I don't like you when you're clean because you don't need me. And now you care about your cactus. And I want kids so I can be attached to you more. And this is clearly not healthy. And so they fight. They break up. He gets clean. Again, he kind of gets clean. He refocuses. He wins a fight. He enters the Pride 2000 Openweight Grand Prix with a lot of other people, including Mark Coleman, his friend, to have a rematch with Igor Vovchanchin, who beat him earlier and kind of like broke his brain. Yeah, broke his spirit, not his brain. His brain is damaged, but no more so than the average fighter. Take that for what it's worth. And he wins his first fight, and then when he goes for the second fight, he kind of gets back together with Dawn, and that reduces his focus on training. He's not as good. They have a big fight. She, in a very unbalanced way, threatens to kill herself as a means of exercising control. He gets her locked up for help. He loses.
He gets her in Arizona, what in Florida we would call a Baker Act. She's involuntary. Fucking hate you in this world. She's involuntarily hospitalized for psychiatric reasons.
Yeah. I know all about that because Utah is one of the places that is the easiest to do in the entire country. It's actually why our suicide
possibly be easier than Florida.
Look it up. I'm not kidding. Like,
I don't
look
know
up how easy it is to commit someone.
What are you doing? The Salem fucking witch trials out there? You just point at people and go, they're suicidal, and they take them away?
You are scarily close to being correct.
Please continue. I don't want to talk about this on the air.
Look, you work where you work. Don't come out here and work. You'll go nuts.
Okay.
So he loses a fight to Kazuyuki Fujita because Ironhead. But his good friend Mark Coleman goes on to win the Pride 2000 Openweight Grand Prix. And Mark Kerr is sort of relieved of the burdens that he's been carrying. Then we get a post-credit where we see Mark Kerr in 2025 living in Scottsdale, Arizona. He's a nice guy. Perfectly normal. And some notes come up that he and Dawn got back together after she was released.
For 6 whole years.
They have a kid. Yeah, that's kind of it. That's where the story ends. It's like as a bit of like, there's a lot of people who helped build MMA into what it is today. This is one of them. You should know his story. And I will yell about that later. I want to talk about the movie before I talk about some of my ancillary problems and how my deep real world knowledge conflicts with the fiction.
So let me start there because I don't want to start with The Rock and I don't want to start with the cinematography. Both, I think, are exceptional in this movie for different reasons. I do want to talk about something that Robert and I are going to fight about. We're going to fight about it because Robert is Robert and I am me. And that is, I don't remember who Mark Coleman was. I would have to look it up. I would have to rewatch some of his fights and go, oh, that guy. I still wouldn't know Mark Coleman's personality and in behavior and demeanor if I saw it in a fucking lineup. Therefore, when I make the following statement, I would really prefer if my head stayed attached to my goddamn shoulders because I am giving a craft opinion. I thought Ryan Bader was fucking excellent in this. And I have seen Ryan Bader give some interviews. Sketchy communication skills at best. The best thing about Ryan Bader, aside from some of his knockout power when I watched him live in MMA, was that he came to the fucking ring and calling himself Darth Vader to the Imperial theme on occasion. But I liked how him and The Rock played off of each other. I liked the character of Mark Coleman that he played. It's not easy to be an actor, contrary to popular opinion.
Oh, it's one of the most difficult jobs in the world, believe it or not.
It's less easier when you're not actually a trained actor and you're an athlete being asked to do acting. So I'm a little bit more forgiving maybe than Robert is and maybe than most, because what I saw, I got very lost in Ryan Bader's character. Whoever Mark Coleman was supposed to be in this movie, I didn't feel like I was watching Ryan Bader anymore. I felt like I was watching that character. So kudos to him. I genuinely liked how he played off of Dwayne Johnson. I liked the scenes that he was in. I thought he gave believable line delivery. And again, as long as your line, look, I have seen professional actors give such bad line deliveries it took me out of the movies. Listen to any one of our reviews where I'm being hypercritical. I've said as much. I was never once taken out of the movie by him. I was never once taken out of the movie by Emily Blunt, who is outstanding in this movie. And I say that because they gave her precious little. And she's a very different character than anything she plays in any other movie she's been in. But Emily Blunt, you can give her anything. She give her chicken shit, she makes chicken salad out of it. I think because she's so against type in this movie, that made me like her more. I didn't look it up because I really don't want to play story time with AI tonight. But I do wonder if Emily Blunt and Dwayne Johnson have a working relationship after or even before Jungle Cruise, that she got this gig. There are so many hot, big-boobed actresses they could have gotten to play her that would have done a rambling, bipolar nonsense girl just as well, if not better. They got Emily fucking Blunt to do that. That's pretty incredible. And I'm wondering if she just likes working with The Rock or has something with $7. Who knows?
I imagine she saw the opportunity to give a really good performance and angle for an award. And I don't look. The check cleared, and this will get her some prestige nominations. Like, what more do you want?
That's good enough for me. I'm not taking that away from her. Anyway, she's phenomenal in this. She does a really, really good job with a character you wouldn't think you would need much, but I think that's the Emily Blunt effect, is that it doesn't have to be much and she'll make it something special.
Yeah.
I think I've said all I need to say about Ryan Bader. For what they gave him, for what they had him doing, and for his actual innate acting ability, I thought he did an exceptional job. I really enjoyed Ryan Bader in this movie. Which brings me to The Rock. I think The Rock is a less good actor than John Cena. I've liked more of John Cena's stuff, and I think John Cena is an actual better performer on screen than The Rock is. I think The Rock got by on body shape and projects that he chose. I think he has always given at best a serviceable. There's the occasional really bright spot, but for the most part, I think The Rock has always given a serviceable performance, and in some cases, a terrible performance, just awful. I really liked him in this, and I think I don't think he'll win it, but I do think he deserves an Oscar nomination for Best Actor for this movie. I think his performance in this is exceptional. He's riding the line of doing a Mark Kerr impression, but just to the side of authentic performance. And I think that's pretty incredible for that guy with his caliber of acting skills. Not knowing until after I watched the movie and doing some research that this was based on a documentary makes total sense to me because I remember needling Jonas, like nudging Jonas as I was watching it, going, like, they shot this like a documentary. He's like, yeah, it's really cool looking. I love the cinematography in this. The cinematography in this makes it feel like you're living through these real life events. It's like, if you, for those that don't know, the name of there's a Bret Hart documentary that's very famous now called Wrestling with Shadows, and it happened to have taken place during the time of the Montreal Screwjob. If you don't know what that is, every other one of my podcasts I bring it up, so just watch one of those. And there's an entire podcast we dedicated to it. So, but needless to say, it was one of the more
thinks it's a work.
It's one of those situations where it's one of the more famous things in modern wrestling. It kind of defined an entire era for the most part. In any case, it would be like if you were watching a movie about that period of time, having like seen it through the eyes of the documentarians. That's how this movie comes across, and I think it's great. This is a very quiet movie, which I liked aesthetically. I like the fact that it's signaling melodrama without being melodramatic.
Yeah.
It also speaks to substance abuse and mood dysregulation in ways that don't embarrass the mental health profession, which is rare on film. It's rare in drama.
Kind of rare in real life these days, too, depending on where you are.
People making this film understood that the undercurrent of talking about MMA is to have to talk about mental illness and brain damage and, neuroscience without making it overly melodramatic. There's a really funny, just to give you by way of comparison, there was a made-for-TV movie, and it was absolutely made-for-TV quality, about the history of Roseanne. And I'll never forget the scene in the car with the gal who plays Roseanne and the guy playing Tom Arnold. And she's shaking him, going, "You don't love me. You love cocaine." At which point there should have been like a fucking star that comes across the screen going, "The more you know." It was like that level of melodramatic. There's nothing like that in this movie, and there could have been. So bravo for the production team to not go that way. Absolutely brilliant. The reason why this shouldn't be nominated for a Best Picture is that it's not, in a few different ways, a good movie. One of those things is the plot and pacing. Yes, you're following the event. So, by way of comparison, a movie I did enjoy, a movie with good pacing, a movie with a fun story, Bohemian Rhapsody. There you have.
We're not going to review that movie, but it's
there you have drama. There you have performance. There you have a plot that, if you don't know this, it's about the band Queen and, to a lesser degree, Freddie Mercury. You could be convinced it was still just a fictional story about this band and this guy and what it says about being a homosexual, that era of America. If you want a more recent example, A Complete Unknown had a plot and plot points that flowed really, really well. Neither can be accused of meandering. The Smashing Machine does meander. People ask me, like, why don't you watch more documentaries? Because documentarians also have this problem, and it's really funny that the movie has the exact same problem, and that is because they allow for so much quiet, they don't always keep the beach ball of intensity up. And so there are just parts of this movie that are very flat, just like there are parts of documentaries that are kind of flat. You're interested in them because people watch documentaries are interested in learning. If you're not interested in learning anything about this or Mark Kerr, this movie fucking loses you entirely. You can tell, much like this is a little bit better than the Iron Claw in the sense of how the fighting scenes are shot, because in the Iron Claw and Queen of the Ring had the same problem, where it was like they clearly shot all the fighting stuff on the same set. And here they clearly shot almost every single fight scene on the same set, shot it the same exact way every single time, which you can kind of get away with in real life because people are really there to watch the sport. They're not there to watch the entrances. But even now, if you watch any of the current Riyadh season boxing, they've all taken a cue from the WWE, and they're all doing these spectacular entrances and stuff like that. I know that wasn't the case 30 years ago, but that's kind of my point is instead of kind of showing us the arena, it's the same shot and then they're in the ring and it's over and over and over again. Kind of boring. That kind of set repetition makes me feel the movie is cheap, and I wish it didn't. What did you want to say about that?
I was just gonna say, like, some of that is just a budgetary constraint. Some of it's also true to life. The fact that they
real quick, we'll talk about this in a minute, but this was budgeted at $50 million. The problem is the way they shot this looks like it was shot for less. Like it was actually shot for $5 million, and 45 of it went to the actors.
Just to give them credit on the production side, like they actually they made a replica of that ballroom where that Vale Tudo fight takes place.
That actually looked better. That looked better than what they were doing with the Pride stuff.
Well, that's because those Pride events are big, and they didn't have the budget to recreate a big event.
Yeah, I don't want you to scream and yell at me, but like they can't like shoot it in the Tokyo Dome, and show the Tokyo Dome, so that you get a sense of scale. So instead, this looks like the MMA fights that I used to be a judge for that are at a hotel.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that not going to go off on a tangent, but for the record, the fact that the UFC in particular has a bizarre vested interest in removing any sense of spectacle, scale, or pageantry from anything they do ever just conditions MMA fans to not expect it.
You know what's funny about that is I remember like thinking, because I talked about this on the show at the time when I was still doing it, Jake Shields versus GSP when that came to, I think it was Toronto.
Yeah, one of the very few like stadium shows they've done.
Was it Montreal or was it Toronto?
I
know it was in Canada.
I believe Toronto, because they put like 50,000 people in there. Hang on.
Yeah, my point is, I remember talking about when we previewed the Jake Shields GSP fight. I was like, oh, they're going to have Titantrons and they're going to make it a big spectacle and there's going to be fireworks, and they did none of those things.
Okay, yeah. The Rogers Center in Toronto, 55,704
right. I remember like
people in attendance.
What amazing marketing there was for that show. Like it was such awesome commercials, and there was a big emphasis on this is going to be loud because there's going to be so many people. We're going to fill up a stadium here. And then we get to the show, and it's as bland as the day is long.
It's any other generic UFC event.
Right. They could have shot that at the Nassau fucking Coliseum, but would have had the same
They could have shot it in the Apex. Like, it's bordering, okay, not quite that bad, but it's bordering on that.
Right.
They had kind of a similar problem. They've done a couple of stadiums in Australia, because Marvel Stadium hosted Rousey Home and was a big event. But apart from like one or two crowd shots, like they don't do big screens. They don't do entrances. They don't do any of the fun stuff.
Right. And look at Canelo versus Crawford from a few weeks ago. Look at a WWE event.
And I guarantee you, Dana White bitched the entire time to Turkey about that because that was a Turkey thing, not a Dana thing.
So anyway, what do you think of the movie?
Thought it was pretty good. There's a lot good about it. I'm with you. The Rock should get some award buzz for this. I don't think he should win, probably, but I also haven't seen enough other performances that make me go, that was definitively better than what he did.
Mm-hmm.
Like the fact that he was probably about on par with stuff that like Sean Penn or Leo was doing.
I was going to say, like, he's not better than either of the two guys we talked about last week. So
I'd argue he's on par with Leo's performance, which did nothing for me. And Sean Penn's was a whole other kettle of fish, but that's a whole other thing. But he's on par with some of those. This performance is on par with some of those. So
hang on. Did you see that I changed the schedule again and I added the Springsteen movie and I moved The Hand That Rocks the Cradle?
Yeah, I just accept every
Yeah, I
Can
know.
you
So I
send
didn't
me?
if you liked it or you were okay with it. I just want to know you saw it.
Yeah,
And there's a
look,
reason why the guy playing Springsteen's going to end up being nominated and probably winning Best Actor.
Jeremy Allen White. And much as I hate Bruce Springsteen and his stupid music for the most part, we're gonna have a fun review on that one.
Oh, like this one isn't tickling your nether regions? Keep going.
So again, this movie also annoyed me when it comes specifically to The Rock. Because he usually gets there's a long history of kind of dunking on the guy's movie career, some of which is earned, let's be clear. But everyone likes to do so who's the best wrestler turned actor? And we all kind of put our heads down, those of us who pay attention to both wrestling and acting, because there's one answer. There is only one answer. Who's the best wrestler turned actor? Come on, Mark. I'm prompting you here. Who is it?
Oh, I thought that was rhetorical and you were just going to say it.
I would like you to answer because I think you'll get it right. It's not complicated. You shouldn't be thinking this hard about it.
Just go, please move on.
It's Dave Bautista, first of all.
Oh, I would have gotten there eventually.
You forgot Bautista was a wrestler is what happened.
Yeah, pretty much. Also, no arguments there. He really is like the best wrestler turned actor.
Oh, he's a really good actor.
Yeah.
And then John Cena tends to get play because John Cena, when he started acting, initially tried to do the action thing and it didn't work out. So he leaned more into not only comedy, but stuff that because John Cena, God bless him,
John Cena was willing to make an ass out of himself.
No shame.
And here's the thing: I'll tell you the role that did it, and you're going to disagree because you didn't see the movie, and if you didn't see it, it doesn't exist. His role in the Amy Schumer movie. Oh God, not Trainwreck. No, Trainwreck.
Oh, Trainwreck. Okay.
I tell you because girls who don't know wrestling or don't have boyfriends who like wrestling saw John Cena for the first time in that and went, he's handsome, he has an awesome body, and he's hysterical in this. I know that for a fact.
I would absolutely believe that. I have no. Mm-hmm. He was by all accounts, he was the only redeeming quality of that movie.
That is correct. It was shot. There was two things: John Cena, and it was shot in focus.
It should have been shot out of focus for a few different scenes.
Move on.
No one needs to see Amy Schumer in high definition. Anyway. So those two guys are like the top of the list, and The Rock kind of gets bottomed out because The Rock approached movies like he approached wrestling.
Efficiently.
Well, efficiently and deeply protective of his image.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean that you might think about wrestling like that and go, wait, what do you mean? Like, The Rock did a lot of jobs. He really did. But The Rock he always protected himself in the sense that he never stopped being over.
Yeah.
And he was, to his credit, smart enough to know that means I don't have to win every match. Like, that's a stupid way of thinking about it.
Right. He's not Bob Holly, who if you give him the title, he'll beat everybody.
Well, that was just Bob Holly saying, you're creative, you're supposed to be the ones doing this. If you let me do what I want to do, here's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, because Bob Holly about as insightful as a ham sandwich.
Give or take. But when The Rock moved into movies, again, he was deeply protective and didn't view himself so much as an actor at a certain point as a brand.
Right.
And
to the point where he made fun of himself on this on the second episode of Saturday Night Live. He was like, "Oh, I'm wrestling. I'm movie Viagra." He had like one or two roles where lending his brand to the movie made the movie better. One of which was one of the Fast and the Furious movies.
Fast 5, which saved that god-awful franchise.
Right, but it artificially inflated his importance to movies, and he kind of ran with that for a while until the numbers proved him wrong. Black Adam.
Yeah, there's if you want a slightly more serious look at that, Critical Drinker's doing an intermittent series on his channel that is the Crash and Burn stuff.
I haven't watched his Crash and Burn yet. Is it good?
The one on the Rock's interesting because his like fall from grace is less a plane crash and more like slow motion. Like we could all see in fine detail where all the cracks are forming and where things are starting to fall apart.
It's funny because I think part of it was, and there's another universe where some of the stuff that happens to The Rock doesn't happen, and he ends up like running DC and all this other crap that happens. It's like literally like variations on a butterfly effect. We are way far away from this movie, so please get to The Rock in this movie.
My point there is watching The Rock in this makes me aggravated that he decided to use part of his career the way he did.
Mm-hmm.
Because if at this point he's capable of doing something this good, I think he should do this stuff this good more often and stop doing the stupid action stuff. He's pushing 60. Stop it. Like, that's not you anymore. Give it up. If you're going to be an actor, be an actor. You know, do stuff like this.
What else?
Stuff that's interesting. So, yeah, he's really good here. He is genuinely really, really good. So, big ups to him. You're right, Emily Blunt, phenomenal. Another person will get awards buzz out of this.
She won't win. She didn't do enough in this movie to win. And there are better women performances and better movies. But I think she'll be. They nominate 6 or 8 women or some shit like that. She'll get one of them.
They nominate 5.
Okay. Oh, that's right. I'm thinking of Best Picture.
There's 10 Best Picture noms, and you know, Smashing Machine might sneak one of those because there's 10 of them. That's a lot of slots to fill.
We'll see how the rest of the season plays out. By this time, we didn't know any of the movies that were going to be in the top 10 besides just Dune and Wicked.
Give or take. I mean, look, Avatar will probably get a nomination because, of course, it will. And it shouldn't, but it will.
Shoot me.
It's not. They're not good movies. Stop it.
The Smashing Machine.
I disagree with you on Ryan Bader for several reasons.
You're not allowed to disagree with me because you know how Mark Coleman looks. So tell me about Ryan Bader's performance that bothers you so much.
Well, he doesn't act like Mark Coleman either. And
good. I'm glad that was established. That's all that needs to be said about it.
Hang on. When you're basing your look, if The Rock came in here and acted like The Rock instead of Mark Kerr, that would be a giant complaint, would it not?
Okay.
Ryan Bader does not act like Mark Coleman. It's a problem when you're trying to play someone specific.
Well, okay, but let me ask
in real life.
Let me ask you a question about that, because if you're saying what I think you're saying, that's valid. Do you not think Ryan Bader gave a performance and he's just doing Ryan Bader?
Mostly.
That's valid, Robert.
Now, let me give Bader a few points of credit here. He's funny when he gets knocked out. Sorry. I watched way too many Ryan Bader fights to feel all that charitable about a lot of his career. Anyway. Lay and pray. Woohoo. That said, there's a few things he does right. You're entirely correct. He does nothing to take you out of this movie. God bless him for that.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not like me and you don't know kind of the ins and outs of the person he's supposed to be portraying, and I don't know Coleman like personally or anything, but I've seen enough to know some of this is, let's smooth out the let's not do the roid rage, because Mark Coleman in 2000 is juiced to the gills. Now, so there's that. He doesn't look like Mark Coleman. He doesn't sound like Mark Coleman. Like The Rock sounds like Mark Kerr. He went through the effort to change his voice to give a performance. Ryan Bader is here basically being himself. And that's not the end of the world, partially because there's a lot of overlap in like general humanness between him and Mark Coleman. There's a fair amount of overlap there, so I'm okay with it. But if you tell me that's Mark Coleman, I won't believe you, because it's not. It's kind of just Ryan Bader being Ryan Bader. Now, again, give credit. He's not bad. He's not taking me out of the movie. He is comfortable. He is natural. He interacts with the other people the way that they should because he's a fighter and knows how these people should interact. So be yourself is good advice when it comes to some of his performance. I don't think he's going to get anything out of this. No one's going to hire him for another acting gig based on this.
Caveat to that. He'll get
Okay.
hired if they need another combat sports movie guy. Because that's kind of now his calling card. Or if they need something combat sport adjacent, like weightlifting. If they need, if they need a
They
gym
won't get
guy.
him.
So hang on. So Michael Bay, Pain and Gain, you need a bunch of like muscle heads in the background and one of them and a few of them to give dialogue. He'll get that gig.
Depends on how much he's willing to get on the juice, because he's not. Never mind. I think you're right. Like, he might be able to carve out a little niche for himself, but I think his limitations as an actor are part of the reason some of what's going on with Coleman in this movie gets put on the back burner in a way that is a bit of a detriment to the story if we're looking at like the structure of what's going on.
Here's something I'll tell you also. If $7 does something where they need a Russian goon,
there's the number of MMA fighters who have transitioned to like generic background muscle.
Who is the black guy, Robert, who he either knocks you out or his fights are the most boring thing ever, and he does nothing.
Derek Lewis?
No, he's either a welterweight or a middleweight. I'm saying this because he got some really funny coverage being a background goon in someone's black gang. They got to wear a suit and everything. Oh, gosh, it's killing me.
Kamaru Usman?
No.
Because he did. He's in Black Panther. He'll tell you all about it if you ask him.
Keep going, and I'll just yell over you again.
Okay. But, I mean, guys like Keith Jardine, Tate Fletcher, Krzysztof Sosinski. Krzysztof Sosinski gets decapitated in Logan, actually. He's you can see him in that. So a lot of guys have found second life doing that kind of stuff. And, good for them, because pay in MMA is abysmal. So point being, like, Ryan Bader's not going to wind up on. I don't think I'm not saying he.
Tyrone Woodley.
Okay, welterweight. And when did he get play in a suit?
He was in Olympus Has Fallen, which is probably what I recognized him in, and The Equalizer 2.
Okay, I remember him feeding his his dick to a raccoon.
What movie was that?
I don't know. Look it up. I'm not kidding. It's a thing.
I remember that, but
I don't know the movie. Sorry,
doesn't
couldn't
matter.
tell you.
Tyrone Woodley, so to finish this up so we can move this on, we're at an hour now. Ryan Bader will probably get Tyrone Woodley roles, especially if $7 is doing the movie. Go on.
Yeah, he'll probably get a few background things like that. And yeah, that's, again, fine. Not mad at him for it. But if you had a real actor in that role, you could have done the parallel story to Mark Kerr, that is Mark Coleman's run through the Pride 2000 Openweight Grand Prix, which is actually a genuinely like redemptive moment for the guy. The fact that everyone's doing the boy he should retire shtick, and I know that guy fought to like 2016. He fought Randy Couture in a retirement fight just so they could have two Hall of Famers fight each other at the same time. Back before Randy Couture was persona non grata around the UFC again. Like, he fought Shogun and looked like death. On an Ireland card for some reason. Anyway, for some reason it was a rematch because, anyway, MMA history. But a real actor could have actually carried some of what Coleman goes through at that point in time, and you could have told a parallel story. And it would have been like, you would have got a stronger overall movie and a stronger overall story out of that. But, you work with what you got. Boss Rutten playing himself. Again, Boss actually knows how to act a little bit. He's done a fair amount of movies and TV, smaller work, but pretty consistent. He's just playing himself from 25 years ago.
Looks like he hasn't aged a day.
You are a liar.
Crazy?
You are a liar.
Boss Rutten is a fucking elf, man. He hasn't fucking aged at all. Not in this movie. Not in this movie, at least.
Look up what he looked like when he was younger.
Okay, sure.
Look, I'm not saying he's aged badly. He hasn't. He's aged very well, apart from his right arm. which horribly atrophied after he had neck issues.
Right.
And he's sort of been building it back up. But he does not, no. Like, he used to be a model. Like, no, he's not that. He does look like a grandpa. Anyway. He's himself. He's fine. Stephen Quadros playing himself also from supposed to be like 30 years ago is just sad.
What'd you think of Usyk in this?
Oh, okay. I have to divorce myself from this. Because Oleksandr Usyk does not look at all like Igor Vovchanchin. And I don't mean in the face. He doesn't look like him in the face, but the body is all wrong. Igor's another one of those guys juiced to the tits. Like brick house of muscle. And Usyk, understandably, is not going to do that to himself while he is holding a bunch of boxing titles that they allegedly drug test for.
Yeah.
That said, it's less of an issue with him because he's not a character, really. He delivers a few lines. He's there to be an opposing force. He's not there to actually, like, he's not even an evil force. You know, he and Mark Kerr get along despite beating it. Like, I'm okay with him. It's a novelty. There's so much just like.
Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
This last thing, and then we really ought to move on. So my kids didn't watch Pride or Ryzen or any of the shit that came out of Japan. They would stay up long enough to watch a little bit of UFC before bed at the time that I used to have friends over to watch the UFC. That's about all they saw. Even today, they're more likely to have watched a boxing match with me or pro wrestling and not very much MMA because I don't watch that much MMA. And when I do, they're not around. So they don't know the difference between the kind of MMA that was okay and legal in Japan versus what was acceptable here in America, as the UFC for years spent decades trying to get this thing trying to get the thing legal. So in other words, like, I don't react all that much to soccer kicks. My kids reacted viscerally. I'm wondering what your opinion was on how they presented, and I'm speaking specifically about like the knees to a grounded opponent thing, because I'm bringing it up because the movie makes a big deal about it. When Igor is delivering knees to Mark Kerr when he's grounded, and Mark Kerr is like, top of the head, what the fuck? My head was down. This is meant in the movie to kind of show you the brutality of this, except that there was an accepted amount of brutality at the time, and it hasn't changed all that much all these years later. Your thoughts?
Let me check something real fast.
By the way, while he does that, if those that don't know, a soccer kick is literally you're on the ground and a guy can kick you squaw in the face.
Okay.
Which you can't do in America.
So there's a few things about that. I appreciate that they did showing that era of MMA and what kind of a clown fiesta some of it was. You've got a Japanese regulator speaking in English to a bunch of people who are then translating to several different languages. Someone then has to translate what was said in the case of Igor. Like when they're told, we've made some rule changes. No biting, no eye gouging, no fish hooking, no headbutting. And here's the thing about knees to the head. You can't do it when they're in the turtle, which is knees down, head down, or from like the front headlock position. And Igor goes, well, what if he's face up? But that's going from him speaking Ukrainian to his translator who speaks English to the regulator whose second language at best is English. Trying to convey a concept that she really understands only in Japanese. This is almost an I Love Lucy sketch. And I appreciated that, believe it or not.
Okay.
As far as the presentation of that, Pride reversed that rule. Like by the time he complains about Igor, about it being done to him in the rematch, I think it's the one with Fujita.
Mm-hmm.
They're legal at that point. They've re-legalized knees to the head of a downed opponent from that position, because that's where Ricardo Arona just brutalizes Sakuraba. I mean, his face is unrecognizable. I was fine with the general presentation of it. I wish they'd bring them back, for being perfectly honest. I would like more knees. If you don't want to have stomps, okay. But I would be perfectly okay with knees to the head of a downed opponent coming back into the unified rules of MMA. They're fine in the universal rules, which is what one championship uses on the rare occasion they promote an MMA fight these days. But that rule set is legal.
I watch one on Fridays. Like they're doing a lot of kickboxing.
They just do 4-ounce Muay Thai, which is fine.
Yeah.
4-ounce Muay Thai is awesome, but they're not what they tried to be when they got going, and they're burning through venture capital at an unsustainable rate, and that's a whole other discussion. So, but yeah, I would like those to come back. I was glad when they changed the rules a few times recently. Like, okay, so what's a downed opponent? And they went, okay, you need a knee down.
Right.
Like none of this, like.
I remember, like, for years in the UFC with the knees to a downed opponent, and everyone's doing a 3-point stance for 25
Yeah,
minutes.
if you're held, like, the rule for a long time was anything other than the soles of your feet on the ground means you can't be kicked or kneed in the head.
Right. So guys are just sticking one finger on the mat, and staying that way.
And they changed that a little bit. They tried a few other iterations, and finally they just said, okay, your hands don't count.
Good.
You need a knee down to be down.
I say good not because I want to see people kneed in the fucking face. I mean, I do, but that's not the reason. It's because it was getting abused. And I say this in couples therapy all the time. You can't weaponize things that are supposed to help. And it got weaponized, and it bothered the shit out of me back when I was watching this. Anything else about the movie you'd like to talk about?
Yeah. Bless this script in a couple of ways. One in particular. I had a major fear going into this that they were not going to show Dawn as a toxic person. Now, when I say that, I don't mean she's irredeemably awful. Let me be very clear.
She's not. She's actually very low on my Adrian scale.
All things considered, yes. But somewhere in my head was it's modern Hollywood. They won't let a woman be portrayed that way. They will make her just like a long-suffering victim of Mark Kerr's drug addiction and
you love cocaine.
And thankfully, everyone involved in this movie had the presence of mind to go, no, she's a giant screw up too. And we're going to show that a lot of what goes wrong is when they're together, they just spiral in these really unhealthy ways. And thankfully, the script wasn't shy about having this female character be kind of shitty at times. And Emily Blunt, again, fearless actress, has no problem doing it. No problem like being backhanded and snarky at times. And watching these two interact as a couple is like a litmus test for your understanding of human relationships.
Oh, yeah. I know I've said this a couple of times this year, but I watch them and I'm like, well, this is every couple I've counseled.
Well, I also mean, like, if you watch those two and you come away with one of them is just the good one, you have a problem.
Yeah.
Because
it's a very honest depiction of far too many human relationships.
1,000,000%, yes. It's sad, but I breathed a sigh of relief because if she was just a long-suffering angel, this would have been insufferable.
I can't wait to read the Rotten Tomatoes. I haven't looked at them yet, and it's got pretty decent scores, but I can only imagine what some of the women fucking reviewers said about this, if they even saw it.
You're right about a lot of the cinematography being good. The production design, they faithfully recreated a bunch of stuff. So that's real good. There's a lot about this movie I think is good. Now, let me briefly go over part of my issue with this, and this comes up with me on occasion. I know entirely too much about what you're fictionalizing. So I have to wonder about the things you change. I wonder about your casting decisions. Why did you cast Oleksandr Usyk? You did it for a gimmick. It's gimmicky to have the current heavyweight champion of the world play an MMA pioneer who shares his nationality. That's all it is. It's a gimmick. And you have a lot of MMA people in the background of this who are just kind of there. because it borders on pandering in some respects. Then you do, but a lot of it comes from a good place, and so it doesn't. I'm not too off put by it. But there's a couple of things they did change a little bit. The one that stood out to me, as I was really hoping they would have just kept this scene. The scene where Mark Kerr gets rid of all of his drugs.
Mm-hmm.
I sent you a clip of this. There's a longer video from the MMA On Point YouTube channel, which is a really good YouTube channel if you're into the MMA side of things. But a little bit ago, when Smashing Machine, it was kind of scheduled to come out when Smashing Machine's original date was sort of bandied about, and then they pushed it back to get a theatrical release and other stuff. But it kind of walks you through the documentary and does a 30-minute history. A real life history of what's being displayed there and what winds up being fictionalized here. But the scene where he's getting rid of all of his drugs, he pulls out so many vials. It's almost comical if it wasn't tragic. Like The Rock in this movie goes through and like, okay, here's the 5 I get out of here. Here's the 5 I get out of my desk. And, it's the, I'm cleaning my space so I can go get clean. And I know that I guarantee you, they cut it down because they didn't want it to seem comical or unrealistic, because the amount of drugs he took should have killed him. He pulls out like fistfuls, and he's got giant hands, and it's a one and again and again, and okay, we're going to go under the bed here, and here's this more, and it's so many. And they dumbed it down here, and again, I kind of get why, but because you strain credulity, but I've seen the documentary, I know it's real. So I'm left in this spot where, like, you actually downplayed his drug use more than a little bit.
Right. I think that some of that's probably to retain, sympathy from the audience.
Again, I understand the why, but I have to point it out, man. Because again, just those clips, man, of just how many of those he's pulling out of places. It's when you realize it's a real person who really like did all that, and it could do it. You're like, how are you not dead?
Yeah.
Like, it should have killed you.
Next.
I think my only other gripe, and again, because I know too much, I understand, and we talked a little bit about this, I understand them having to dumb down the scale of the Pride events because you don't have the budget to replicate what Pride was at scale, especially in that time period. But you're right that it kind of makes it look, small and cheap. And it's a real dessert. This would be my other pseudo gripe with this. The Rock did a lot to be able to promote this on the UFC broadcasts and whatnot. As a consequence, Kerr's relationship with the UFC and what the UFC was at that point in time is sanitized, sanded down, and pushed off to the side, because we'd rather say, boy, Pride sure was, look at how shady Pride was with the handing out of drugs and all that stuff, instead of having to hold up a mirror to what the UFC was, which was in many respects worse. And you ignore that, sanitize it, and whitewash it for the sake of promoting this to the only people who might care about it, except the UFC is a piss-poor steward of the history of MMA and has always been a piss-poor steward of the history of MMA. The UFC doesn't retain fans longer than about 5 years on average. The UFC doesn't care about its own history. They do the Hall of Fame for people they like. Like, they don't actually care about the history that they're supposed to be representing. Otherwise, you'd talk about Randy Couture. You don't. Why not? Well, we don't like him. Yeah, sure. He's an important figure, isn't he? Well, we don't like him. And we'd really rather modern fans just have us on in the background And they'll go away in 5 years. Yeah, and then we'll get more. And we don't actually care about fan retention because we're getting $1 billion a year from CBS starting in 2026.
UCPLE, the kind of thing you eat in the back, you watch in the background while you're eating wings at Kerr's Wing House.
There is, I wish I was joking, man, but about 70% of current UFC content is second screen viewing, is intentionally second screen
Yeah,
viewing.
that's why I made the joke. It's the kind of thing you watch at a bar between baseball games and football games and basketball games. It's one of the screens on at a bar. There's
a UFC event every week, pretty much. So yeah, they don't want you to actually like retain information. They just want you to be excited. The old joke, just consume product and get excited for next product. That is what they want out of you. So when The Rock goes up there and says, I'm making a biopic about Mark Kerr, like 2 people in the audience know who Mark Kerr is because only 2 people in the audience actually have an appreciation for the history of the sport. The UFC tries to just ignore the rest of it. And please, God, don't ask about BJ Penn and what's going on with him right now.
Right. But I think, look,
what happened to Evan Tanner?
When you're promoting a movie, you have to kind of select your audience to see who you can draw. They may not know who Mark Kerr is, but they're likely to find people willing to come watch this movie in a room full of people who already like the thing he did.
Well, that's a good segue into the money, isn't it?
Sure is, Ollie. All right, here comes the money.
We're in the money. We're in the money.
I know I kind of, bited you.
So the audience that was found, right?
So shut up. So and continue to bite at you or whatever, but it's because we've been doing this for a long time and you're my friend that I know that we can take swings at each other, and as long as it's not a knockout blow or something, heinous or malevolent, it's fine. You and I can pinch and poke at each other. That said, I actually enjoyed our movie review. I don't want to tell people not to come on here, but when it's just me and you and I can just talk and I don't have to feel like I'm doing a show, I enjoy this so much more. And I'm saying this on air because if anyone was like, it seems like a really rough night for Mark. Nope. It's one of the better shows I've done with you this year. You and I kind of know this stuff. You obviously more so than I, but I have opinions and they matter. So I like when we do shows like this. It's fun for me. You don't care.
Yeah, Ryan Bader couldn't summon the roid rage of Mark Coleman, and that's my other gripe with his performance, because boy, did that guy rage out more than once. Famously a few times.
Good to know. Anyway, on a budget of $50 million, this thing died. But this is not meant to be a moneymaker. This was meant to attract This was meant to attract nominations.
At the same time, if you're A24 and you spend $50 million on something, you'd like more than 6.
Here's the thing: when it gets nominated later in the year for Oscars, it'll have re-releases, and people might go see it then. Also, and I don't want to get into this because this is a whole other conversation, and then someone's going to yell at me. But what about Superman? This thing will probably do very well when it's rentable. When people can watch it on PVOD, will it make $100 million? No, but I think you figure A24 already has a streaming deal with Time Warner to put the stuff on HBO Max after it has a run on PVOD. I almost guarantee you, this is going to get a fairly decent rental rate.
Probably.
And then when it's one of the awards, so if you'll remember, all the stuff that gets nominated gets back in theaters around Oscar time.
Not all of it, but a lot of it. Yeah, that's pretty standard at this point.
They run entire marathons of Oscar-nominated shows. I guarantee you, this will get a second run, and it will pick up more money there, for what that's worth. In its first weekend, the movie earned $5.9 million. This was attributed to limited demographic appeal, lackluster word of mouth, and a digital-centric advertisement campaign that failed to reach older audiences. Johnson responded to the opening box office numbers with, "In our storytelling world, you can't control box office results. But what I realize is you can control is your performance and your commitment to completely disappear and go elsewhere. It's not my fault this movie didn't make any money. I did a good performance. Leave me alone."
He did. It's not on him.
And I will always run to that opportunity. Truth is, the film changed my life. Good for you, fucking Dwayne. Good for you.
There's a reason he dropped a bunch of weight after this. I think he decided I can't. I'm again pushing 60. I can't keep putting on that much muscle mass. It's not healthy.
No, he's gonna die of a heart attack at that rate. Taylor Swift, the official release party of A Showgirl, was the #1 movie of the weekend in its debut. And that was an AMC theaters exclusive. One Battle After Another, which we reviewed last week, fell to #1, and The Smashing Machine debuted.
You and I are gonna die on that hill alone together about how bad that movie is. I think.
I don't fucking care. People can suck a dick. Like people are so in love with some of the superficial stuff about that movie. I don't. Their opinion means nothing to me.
I hate that it's a Rick and Morty quote, but the line "You booze me nothing. I've seen what makes you cheer" is a really.
It's going to be on the gravestone of this podcast. Here lies damn you, Hollywood. Gabby's Dollhouse dropped from 2 to 4. The Conjuring 4 to 5. Demon Slayer 3 to 6. Avatar: The Way of the Water, which it's its re-release. It's the second Avatar movie, which came out at the end of, I believe, 2022.
Anyone going to see Way of Water in theaters in 2025 is why we can't have nice things. I hate you all.
I debuted at 7. The Strangers Chapter 2 dropped from 5 to 8. Good Boy debuted at 9.
Can I tell you the funniest thing I saw about Good Boy?
What?
Because they had the dog on the red carpet, right?
Yeah.
So somebody did the joke of asking the dog, "What are your favorite movies?" Because yes. So somebody on Twitter did the response, or like this might have been the production company that had the response. What are the dog's favorite movies? And well, I have to give respect to the OG and Air Bud and The Thing. And I'm sorry, that's funny.
The Long Walk dropped from 7 to 10. Downton Abbey dropped from 8 to 11. Him dropped from 6 to 12.
Him is bombing, and it should.
Bone Lake debuted at 13. A re-release of Casper from Universal
The Friendly
Pictures
Ghost
debuted at 14. Perfect Blue, another re-release from G Kids. I guess it's an anime. Debuted
Perfect
at 15.
Blue that is not a kid's movie. That is a dark psychological character study. It's actually really good.
Anemone debuted at 16, and Kentara, A Legend Chapter 1 debuted at 17. Orwell 2 + 2 = 5 debuted at 28 from Neon. The Librarian 34, The Ice Tower 37. And that was the weekend that was. I almost guarantee you there has been no change worldwide. Ninja, Lilo and Stitch, Minecraft, Jurassic World, How to Train Your Dragon, Demon Slayer.
There's been a change.
Demon Slayer fucking beat out F1, Superman, Mission Impossible, Fantastic Four.
The question now is it's gonna beat How to Train Your Dragon next week.
It's amazing what happens when you make a good product for the fans and stay loyal to the IP.
I mean, it's not gonna get over Jurassic World, but it might. The fact that it's going to hit the top 5, I mean, it's what 500,000 away from beating How to Train Your Dragon.
Shut up for a second. Let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Listen, stop talking. I want to talk to you for a minute.
I says to Mabel, I says.
So the top 5 right now are Ninja, Lilo and Stitch, and Minecraft, Jurassic World, and How to Train Your Dragon. By the end of this year, yes or no, will the following movies break into the top 5? The top 5, the top 5. You ready?
Hang on. So for the record, at the moment, top 5 is 635 million. And again, Demon Slayer is going to bump that a little bit, but 6.5 million is about what you're going to have to hit. So, okay.
Yeah. So will any of the following movies make 6.5?
600 million. Yeah. Sorry, 650 million, not 6.5.
Tron Ares. Just give me a yes or no.
Speculative no.
Okay.
That one's on the bubble. That one might.
All right. No. Let's see. Predator Badlands.
No. That'll be financially successful, but I don't think it'll hit that number.
The Running Man.
Slight lean towards yes. Very slight. I mean, that's been a big number to hit these days to get to 650.
Okay. Wicked for Good. So
What did the first one? Hang on. What did the first one make?
Oh, almost $1 billion. It didn't quite. I remember that was a bone of contention between you and I, and I kept saying it was going to hit $1 billion, and it came close.
It petered out around what, 7 or 8?
Hang on, I'm looking. Come on. Not a single hyperlink to the first movie in this fucking thing.
Hang on.
Oh, there it is. I got it. Wicked.
Did 756.
It certainly did, Ollie. Okay.
So not even 800. Sequel will do 650. I think that pretty handily. It'll at least do what it did the first time.
See, I don't want to say it's going to hit it. It'll be in the top 5 for sure. I think it's the only one we've said so far that has a guarantee to get into the top 5.
Given the state of the top 5 right now, yeah.
Okay. By the way, did you see what got a sequel and is going opposite Wicked for Good?
No.
Sisu, Road to Revenge. I watched that because we did the triple feature with Ronnie, and everyone was talking about it at the time, so I wanted to see it. And I never thought it would get in a million years to get a sequel. So we got the trailer for that, and my kids are like, "What the fuck is this?"
I enjoyed Sisu. There's no reason for it to have a sequel.
Yeah. Zootopia 2.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. See, this is hard.
Disney doesn't have a lot of cachet right now.
But Zootopia, I think the first Zootopia at the time that it came out, granted, it was a whole other world back then, made $1 billion.
It did.
And it doesn't have what do you call it? Bad cachet with fans. Like
this one will though.
There's nothing that's happened in Zootopia since it came out where people would be like, no, you've done bad things. And Lilo and Stitch being my example of this, if you haven't done anything to piss anyone off lately, they're generally they'll still stay with you.
I'll say yes, but I am not super confident in that.
Okay. Five Nights at Freddy 2.
No.
Okay. Avatar, Fire and Ash.
Easily.
So, we know at least 2 more movies, possibly 3, that are going to absolutely break into the top 5. Wicked and Avatar 3.
They will. Those 2 I feel very confident. Those 2 are going to do at least $700 million.
Which puts it above. So, regardless of where Demon Slayer finally lands, it's going to knock out both of those movies. Just the 2 of them will knock out How to Train Your Dragon and Demon Slayer. If there's a third, if there's a third, then Jurassic World gets knocked out of the top 5.
In theory, yeah.
Yeah. So that's fun.
Look, the fact that Demon Slayer beat Superman decisively, it's beat F1. Demon Slayer doing better than every Marvel movie and almost every Disney movie this year.
Mm-hmm.
Just tickles me.
So movies that may not last in the top 10 by the end of the year: Superman, Mission Impossible, and Fantastic Four.
Fantastic Four has no hope.
Yeah, no. Fantastic Four won't make it past fucking Wicked. But
Superman probably won't last.
Well, here's the thing: the movies that never mind Tron or Predator, Badlands, or The Running Man. The 3 movies almost guaranteed to make the top 10. Probably the top 5 were Zootopia, Wicked, and Avatar.
Okay, let me phrase it this way. If Zootopia doesn't at least make what doesn't do enough to beat Fantastic Four, so call it 5.5.
Mhm.
So 550. If Zootopia doesn't do like 550 to 600, that's the Disney burn everything down for the insurance money moment.
Other movies in and around the top 20, we've got The Conjuring, which made it to number 11. The Conjuring doing better than Captain America: Brave New World and Thunderbolts.
My bank account's doing better than Captain America, Brave New World, and Thunderbolts.
Sinners is at 14 right now. Behind it is Final Destination: Bloodlines, Weapons getting Oscar buzz for some strange reason. The Bad Guys
Okay,
2.
serious question, Mark.
Mm-hmm.
How many better movies than Weapons have you seen all year?
I like Nanas.
Okay, you're just being difficult now.
Snow White still in the top 20 at 205. Elio under the Snow White. And Freakier Friday beating out 28 years later Dogman, Ballerina, Mickey 17, Karate
Yeah, but
Kid.
Freakier Friday petering out at 120 million has to have got
152 is where it
150
petered
has
out.
to have gotten somebody fired.
I hope. All right, so that's with that. September is over. Fuck you, it's August is over. We're finally into the last quarter of big hit movies. So the Murderer's Row coming up is Tron Ares next week, The Black Phone 2, Springsteen, this year's a complete unknown. Springsteen, Deliver Me from Nowhere.
I've still never, you know something, Mark? How the musical biopic genre survived Walk Hard is beyond me. Because it's 10 years later, 15 years later, and every single one of those stupid things still does everything that movie lampooned.
Then we're taking a week off so I can torture Robert with The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, which is a Hulu movie and a remake of a movie that came out in 1992. Then we're back with Predator Badlands, The Running Man, Wicked Part 2, or Wicked for Good, Zootopia 2, Five Nights at Freddy 2, Frankenstein from Netflix, so finally something not in theaters, and then Avatar, and that's going to be the last movie review of the year because I will be gone for a couple of days the following week, and then we have our Damn You Hollywood year in review, and what a year it will be on New Year's Day, January 1st. And then, oh boy, Robert, we kick off January with Soulmate, a spin-off of Megan.
So this will be the last year for
I
Damn
think
You Hollywood.
I think 2026 might be our curtain call.
I don't want it to be.
Really? You're not just about done with this?
Look, if you'd rather just make TikToks, I get it.
I don't know. I don't want to quit the show on the show. But we're both kind of losing the energy level for this. And I look at next year and I see the dying light in your eyes. So
Well, I mean, look, January is always awful. Like,
you want to play this game? Let's play a game.
all
Ready?
right.
I look. I'm only going to annoy my girlfriend, so let's just play a game. Who's currently watching at a very loud volume. Orange is the New Black. Okay.
Well, that's a mistake.
Soulmate, January 9th. January 16th is 28 years later, The Bone Temple.
Okay. Moderately interested in that, apart from the director.
The 23rd, there's a movie directed by Timur Bekmambetov, starring Chris Pratt and Rebecca Ferguson, and opposite that is Return to Silent Hill. Then we have a Sam Raimi movie called Send Help.
Well, got to see a preview for that, or a trailer for that, but, Sam Raimi's usually a good time.
Let's see. We've got a Wuthering Heights coming out by Emerald Fennell.
I saw a trailer for that.
I might have too, and I may just not have been paying attention. We've got a movie called Goat by coming out from Sony, and Crime 101 coming out by MGM. We've got a Gavin Polone movie called Psycho Killer, and I Can Only Imagine 2 from Lionsgate. And hey, February 27th is Scream 7. And we have a Pixar movie called Hoppers and a Warner Brothers movie called The Bride, directed by Maggie Gyllenhaal. We've got Project Hail Mary from MGM, directed by Lord and Miller, an untitled Trey Parker film. Let's see. We've got the sequel. This will be Alexis's fucking wet dream. The Super Mario Bros. Galaxy movie.
You know, the Super Mario Brothers movie wasn't terrible.
We've got another Ready or Not movie coming out.
Kind of surprised at that. I really wish they wouldn't try to sequelize stuff that's fine standing on its own.
Lee Cronin's The Mummy.
Don't know who Lee Cronin is, so okay.
The Michael Jackson biopic that was supposed to come out in October got pushed to April, apparently.
That'll get pushed again, is my bet.
The sequel that everyone's wanted, The Devil Wears Prada 2.
Once again, a sequel to a 20-year-old property, give or take.
And then another movie called Animal Friends, which is a live-action animated road comedy directed by Peter Atencio. Mortal Kombat 2. And all right. So here's so far it's just another year in movies. It's no big deal. It is what it is. But here is where we start to see whether or not Robert really wants to do this for another 2 years, because we're going to do it next year. But is next year going to be our swan song? Let's find out. Mortal Kombat 2, May 15th. The Mandalorian and Grogu, May 22nd. Masters of the Universe, June 5th. Scary Movie 6 and an untitled Spielberg movie, June 12th.
Hang on. We're not reviewing Scary Movie.
Of course not. June 19th is Toy Story 5. Boo! Boo!
Neither of us want to do that one.
June 26th is Supergirl. July 1st is
also known as James Gunn's desperate bid to hang on to the power he acquired.
July 1st is Minions 3.
I'll enjoy that.
July 10th is the live action Moana.
That's a choice.
July 17th is Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, which my son's actually excited about.
I am so excited for that.
Okay.
I like Chris Nolan movies. What do you want from me?
There's another Evil Dead movie coming out, Evil Dead Burn, July 24th.
Cool.
July 31st, Spider-Man, Brand New Day.
Allegedly.
Yeah. Flowervale Street, which I think got pushed off from this year. It's coming out August 14th. Another Insidious movie. Again, Alexis will stain her pants. Coyote versus Acme will finally see its release on August 28th, starring John Cena.
We're all glad that movie got its release finally.
Clayface, September 11th. Untitled Resident Evil film, September 18th. Practical Magic 2, September 18th.
Boy, that's a deep cut.
Legend of the Legend of Aang, The Last Airbender, October 9th.
What?
The sequel to The Social Network, The Social Reckoning, Andrew Graham will stain his pants.
Okay, that's a terrible idea on every level.
Street Fighter, for me it was only Tuesday, comes out October 16th.
Yeah, there's a lot of bad ideas for next year. We can admit that.
The Cat in the Hat, November 6th. The Hunger Games, Sunrise on the Reaping, November 20th.
I really wish everyone involved with that franchise would move on, for crying out loud.
Speaking of which, Fokker in Law comes out November 25th.
Okay, which of them is just that desperate for a paycheck, and why is it Robert De Niro?
Narnia, The Magician's Nephew, which is a Netflix movie, so who gives a fuck? Never mind.
Oh, is
Violet,
that? Hang on, is that Greta Gerwig's?
yes.
I really
Violent,
hope everything about that burns down before then.
okay. Violent Night 2, because
Okay, I'm actually down for that.
Untitled Jumanji: The Next Level sequel.
I'm not sure that's gonna happen.
So the nutcases at Warner Brothers decided to fucking counter-program Avengers Doomsday with Dune Part 3.
You know what? Given where Avengers is and the Marvel fandom, that's not actually a bad idea.
December 23rd is the Angry Birds Movie 3. Hey, remember when we reviewed the first one?
I do. I did not enjoy that movie.
And then Werewolf, not to be confused with Nosferatu, Robert Eggers on Christmas.
I'm down for that. I tend to enjoy Eggers' work as well.
So we'll do at
So
least
there's
one
plenty
more.
of look, man. There's also plenty of time for all of that to change because
Well, more to the point, and the only reason why I went through that list other than it would amuse me is we'll do this for another year, but I serious consideration to whether or not we want to continue this in 2027.
we'll see what happens over the next year.
Yeah.
Look, whether I enjoy every movie we talk about or not, I enjoy doing the show with you. So
Okay. I don't disenjoy it with you. I just said 30 minutes ago. I said this was the best show I've done with you all year. So, and you stared at me like, like I had two heads. So you don't get two compliments in the same show. With that,
I appreciate that. I just tend to say, with very few exceptions, I enjoy the vast majority of these. Like the ones that I don't are very, very few and far between. So
and it's never my fault. All right.
no, I didn't say that. Frequently, it's my fault.
So that wasn't even the joke for me. All right, here it is, a critical review.
Are you ready? No! I said, are you ready?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Alrighty. 73% critical score, 78% fan score.
That's about right.
Top critics, this goes up to 76. All critics drops it to 73. Verified audience is 78. All audiences is 69.
Bunch
I
of
think-
people who don't know what they're talking about.
I honestly think it just bored people. Like my kids are pretty well movie trained, and they didn't dislike the movie, but even they said that they were a little bored at times, and that's on the movie. It's not on my kids.
Yeah, that's true.
Dwayne Johnson goes the distance with his transformative turn as Mark Kerr in The Smashing Machine, a gritty biopic that sidesteps cliches even at the expense of narrative satisfaction while still landing the dramatic body blows that counts. Dip.
I mean, it's not entirely wrong, but yeah.
Abby Bernstein of Assignment X. The film does demonstrate that Johnson can convincingly carry a film in a straight role, which seems to be the victory that the filmmakers most desire.
Not entirely inaccurate.
I want to hear stupid girls who didn't like the movie. But here's a stupid boy that didn't like the movie. Michael Ward, should I see it? No. Stay home. Shut up. I have seldom watched a movie as afraid of its own shadow as this movie is.
How do you get to that?
I don't know.
This guy wanted more drug use and wanted it to have a tragic end.
He wanted it to be the Basketball Diaries.
Probably.
Dawn, give me some money. Jason Flatt, but why though? A geek community. The Smashing Machine should be a standout movie, but quickly becomes underwhelming biopic slosh instead of the shining example of positive masculinity and struggle that it nearly is.
This is not. No, we needed a shining beacon of positive masculinity. You people would just throw Rocky off a cliff if it were released today. Shut up. Can't take you seriously.
Marissa Hill of Shade Studios, who appears to be showing a lot of cleavage in her picture for some odd reason.
That or it's a very flesh-colored shirt she has on under a jacket.
The Smashing Machine coalesces into a poignant dissection of Kerr's fractures, coaxing empathy for a titan scarred by trauma. Oof.
Coaxing, but yes.
Coaxing. Yes, coaxing. Tired. Leave me alone. Finally, Amy Nicholson never lets me down. Los Angeles Times, top critic. These two high-intensity talents, each with something to prove, seem to have egged each other on to be exhaustingly photorealistic. Good take.
How is that? What?
Well done. Good takeaway there, Amy.
It's a picture. Like this isn't like CGI criticism. Like what the heck are you talking about?
Nate Adams, the only critic. You have to admire the ambition, but the Smashing Machine doesn't have the discipline or clarity to elevate the material into something lasting.
And again, a bit much, but I understand where he's coming from.
I wonder if any of your wives saw this.
I don't know. Clearly not.
No women went to see this movie.
That's not true. No women that you want to feature saw this movie. Those
When
are not
Lai-
the same thing.
Wen Lai Ma, the Nightly, Australia top critic. The Smashing Machine, for something that promised an unforgettable story about a legend, is too ordinary to make a real impression.
Mark Kerr is also not really a legend. It's kind of, yeah, that's a whole other thing.
Rafer Guzman of Newsday, former newspaper, top critic. Too serious star in a scattered screenplay make for a low-energy sports drama.
Yeah, you weren't off the mark when you mentioned that this meanders, so the energy is a bit of a problem, but
Dana Stevens of Slate, top critic. Safdie's camera and the film's sympathies remain at arm's length, obscuring what's going on inside Mark's gigantic cranium even more effectively than his dinner plate-sized hands.
if you don't understand what's going on with the guy, that's a you problem. This movie's not terribly shy about it.
Grace Randolph of Beyond the Trailer. While Safdie doesn't quite deliver behind the camera, this movie spotlights a brave and vulnerable performance by Johnson. If you look for it, there's a great message about the pressures men face, the ones they put on themselves, and how they deal with them. That was very nice, Grace.
Why are these people just desperately trying to make this about like the male experience in 2025?
Because right now, the thing to talk about is how the Democrats lost men and they want to win elections.
True, that is what they want to talk about.
Resident tackling dummy Travis Hobson of Punch Drunk Critics. Mark Kerr was the role Johnson was meant to play, and I'm not sure anyone else could have.
I mean, you could have hired other people, but he does a really good job.
All right. Yesterday was Tron Legacy. Wednesday, myself and Alexis will be reviewing Monster Season 3. Thursday, myself and Sean and Kat, I believe, are reviewing Maximum Overdrive. Boy, the first 45 minutes of that movie are the best thing I've ever seen. The last 45 bored me to sleep.
I told you, so much cocaine. You can tell when the cocaine ran out.
Yeah. I would love to see that Maximum Overdrive remade, but rewrite that script. Like there's promise in that script, but it needs a desperate rewrite and a defter hand. Maximum Overdrive was a very fun premise that kind of dies in the middle and at the end, literally. Sunday, myself and again, I believe Kat and Sean, God help me, will be reviewing the entirety of the Interview with the Vampire series. That was Kat's suggestion. I always give the women what they want, Robert. A week from tonight, like I said, is Tron Ares, which I am not looking forward to at all. And
How
then
can you possibly look forward to anything with Jared Leto in it? I ask this to the general humanity.
And then a week from Thursday is our review of Alien Earth Season 1, which I have heard is a hot mess.
My understanding, it's got a really good first episode. And
Awesome.
then everything else.
It's tanks, yeah. Robert, I hear you write about MMA. Someone may have picked that up on this show.
They have. Yeah, I cover mixed martial arts and professional wrestling over at 411mania.com. This last Saturday, was UFC 320, which featured a lot of Joe Rogan talking about how much he loved the Smashing Machine. Believe it or not.
With a gun to his head.
No. Dude, Joe Rogan doesn't care. That also featured Alex Pereira bulldozing Magomed Ankalaev in 80 seconds. My full report for it is in the MMA Zone to 411mania.com. If you want to hear me talk about it, listen to the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast. I also cover SmackDown, WWE SmackDown on Fridays. This coming week, I will have WWE SmackDown on Friday. Then Saturday, I'm working a double because I agreed to cover WWE Crown Jewel from Perth,
You
Australia.
poor bastard.
I don't feel good about that decision,
You really shouldn't.
but I get paid by the job, so and then a few hours after that wraps up, because that starts at 6 a.m. my time,
Mm-hmm.
I will be covering UFC on ESPN Plus 119 or 120. They're back in Rio de Janeiro for the first time in a little bit, headlined by Charles Oliveira and Mateusz Gamrot. So if you want a full preview, listen to the aforementioned podcast. I talk about it there. And yeah, Tron Ares next week, where we will try to dissect Jared Leto's attempt to be a leading man.
We reviewed the original Tron on Trial a few years ago, and then, like I said, we did Tron Legacy, and then I distilled all of my live notes while watching Tron Legacy with my son, the podcast, and then the original Tron podcast into one 10-minute TikTok. Just go watch my TikTok. You don't need to listen to the podcast. Did you?
And I did, and I understand that you are going to move into that medium more fully, and the rest of this is going to just die off, leaving my life a little more empty.
Oh, I don't want to do that just because I don't want to leave you, Robert Winfrey. I can't quit you, Robert Winfrey. You and Jesse move into a one-bedroom apartment together. All stay the same bed like the Three Stooges.
That sounds like living hell.
Well, I'm happy to give you a living hell. I'm also happy to end the show. For Robert Winfrey, I have to now record another TikTok and watch the second half of Monster Season 3 and the last minute and 45 seconds of Kansas City versus the Jaguars.
So wait, what's your TikTok on?
Oh, I grabbed a whole bunch of stuff and made TikToks out of them just to keep in the can in case I didn't have any good ideas, or I did the Tron Ares one, the Tron Legacy one a few hours ago instead of what it would have been tomorrow. So it's about the state of wrestling. I took a bunch of this. That's what it was. That particular TikTok is me distilling a couple of the Insider shows where Harry and I talked about it into one long form essay.
This also amuses me because you don't watch enough wrestling to actually give a state of the wrestling.
Harry does. But Harry does, and
I'm not sure he does.
Oh, I know he does because I have to hear about it.
Give a state of the business.
Yeah. All right. So for Robert Winfrey and for Sleepy Joe, be well, be safe, and behave.